Yeah, thank you everyone at GDevCon for organising this. I love this event, so it's really great to be here again on the stage presenting. I'm also doing a huddle later on LabVIEW and C++. If you are coming to that, I'm going to try and run it like a hands-on workshop thing. So bring a laptop or a friend with a laptop, and we'll try and get some code running. So yeah, that should be fun, I hope. Or it'll go horribly wrong. It's a huddle. It doesn't really matter. Just we're there to have fun. So yes, the slides for this talk will be at that URL once I've uploaded them. I'll put all the links into that uploaded copy so it's easy to click through. And also if there's any interesting things that come up in any questions, which I'm not going to go rogue, please hold those to the end. I'll put those in that slide PDF as well. So we'll try and capture everything as a useful resource. So I'd like to start, like many of us have, a presentation highlighting those that are often overlooked in the field of science, engineering, and technology. In this case, I'd like to highlight Ida Tarbell. She was born in 1857 and lived through to just after mid-1940s. She was an American writer, investigative journalist, and lecturer. She initially started sort of studying biology in college, and that was her primary interest. But she found that when she graduated, there were very few opportunities for women in that field in the 1880s. She then moved through teaching and writing and eventually into sort of journalism as a field. She wrote a number of biographies of sort of famous people at the time, including one of John D. Rockefeller, who was sort of, I think, one of the wealthiest Americans that there has ever been. And what came from that biography is sort of a full expose of the Standard Oil Company. They were a massive company, and they used their monopoly power to sort of crush all competition and make things worse for both consumers and just sort of society as a whole. So the work that she did encouraged the US Justice Department to actually take action against them and apply existing laws that were already there, but just weren't being applied. And that work that she did also helped create the Federal Trade Commission in the US. And it might seem a bit odd being at GDevCon Europe, talking about sort of US side of things, but being in sort of software world, we're somewhat governed by what happens over with our neighbors across the pond. And I really think that without those sort of without those agencies that are keeping an eye on companies that are behaving anti-competitively, we would see stuff like IBM in the 60s and 70s would have locked down computing, so maybe only they could write software. And then in the 1990s, we'd see sort of Microsoft stamp out anything that wasn't Microsoft. So I think I really am grateful for her contribution, which has ensured that. So we can all develop software today. So I just thought I'd start with that. So I work for Control Software Solutions. We are an NI partner based in Manchester, here in England. We're up in the northwest, or based near Manchester, up in the northwest. We are a returning bronze sponsor, so we really love GDevCon, and I'm very happy that we can support to help in some small way to make it all happen. Unfortunately, GDevCon Europe only comes but once a year. I think we'd probably kill Jenny of the organizing team if she had to deal with us for more than just one event. So we try and keep the fun of GDevCon going throughout the year by organizing the Northwest LabVIEW user group. We had a really great meeting in July, and we're trying to get one organized for, I think it's October. I should probably check with my boss. So the best place to look for any news on that, if you're interested in attending or at least seeing what we're doing, what we're talking about, would be the LinkedIn, which I'll add a link into this presentation so you can follow us and see what's going on. Before we really jump into the topic, it's not going to be too technical, I hope. It's just sort of more informative and kind of fun. So, if it's going to load, do something. There we go. So, I don't know if you got the reference from the title of my talk, or maybe the slide I shared in the title slide. there was this sort of ubiquitous anti-piracy advert on, and I'm dating myself here, I guess, VHS cassettes and DVDs in the mid-2000s, that was sort of saying, like, you wouldn't steal a car, you wouldn't do this, you wouldn't do that, and explaining that, stealing movies and media and stuff was piracy and it was a crime. What is so fun about this advert is when you go on the Wikipedia page, there's this section called copyright concerns, and there were sort of two main issues with this. With this advert. The first is that it seemed like maybe the music wasn't properly licensed. I think the internet wisdom is that was fine, but there's also some question over whether the font they use that's very distinctive was actually kind of a rip-off of some other fonts. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that even people that should really understand, licensing and intellectual property, working in the sort of TV, film, and industry, and for the organization that is all about protecting these things, they still get it wrong, right? So, don't worry if none of this makes sense at this point. Like, we're all on the journey, I think, with this. When I'm preparing for my talk, I like to look at other talks that have gone on. And Jörg Hampel from Hampel Software Engineering, he gave this really interesting talk at GDevCon NA, and because he was sort of talking about cybersecurity, he had this slide saying, like, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a developer. And, there's no point in, like, reinventing the wheel, right? So, like, a quick crop, and we can just, shove one of those on. And, because that's just saved me loads of time. And you might think, hey, you're doing a talk about piracy, and you're just, stealing someone else's content. And I'd say, look, this is fair use. And fair use has a number of exemptions on a range of different topics. Like, I'd like to think it's scholarship. I'm sort of teaching you all something here. You might argue it's parody, but as long as it gets me this exemption, I'm happy, right? So, all good. But to take away the message from this, it's I'm not a lawyer. I'm a developer. I've spent a bit of time Googling this, but that's as far as my legal training goes. So don't make any important decisions based on the content of this talk. It's just a helpful introduction, but something to get you started. So why am I talking about piracy? I thought, well, Brighton, it's near the sea, right? This is maybe the most appropriate forum to talk about piracy. Is Amsterdam, is that like on the sea or is it like a big river? I couldn't work out how that works. Anyway, we're near the sea, seemed to make sense. But the other main reason is that, if I can get it to click through, is that software is covered by copyright law. I guess when people were starting with software, they were like, well, it's sort of like typing, right? And so it's just going to be like a screenplay or a novel or something. So it's covered by copyright law. And that includes both the source code, which is the thing that we actually sort of create and interact with, the thing that we create and develop, and then also the sort of outputs, so when we convert that source code into something that's executable, so binaries, executables, installers. So they're all covered by copyright, and what's great about that is if you create something of your own volition, of your own mind, and put it into software, you own the copyright to that implicitly. You don't have to apply for anything, it is yours. Right? But if you want to use something that someone else created, that isn't, and I should say, when I say you own the copyright, it might be the company that you work for owns the copyright. It all depends. But ultimately, when I say you, I mean someone that is in charge of you, or you yourself own it. So it's yours. If you want to start using something from someone else, then you're going to need probably a license to use that copyrighted piece of work. And we've probably all heard of licenses. We've probably all clicked through various things, which we, as a firm that we've fully read and understood. What that license is going to come with is some terms and conditions. The devil is very much in the detail there. Some of those terms and conditions are kind of quite easy to understand. Maybe they're written for software developers. Those are those are the nice ones. Some of them are big, complicated legal documents, but there's going to be some strings attached. And I might hear you say, "But John, No, yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, great. Well, there'll be more chances. We'll get the timing nailed. But John, I don't use external dependencies. I mean, to me, that seems like a very hard way of developing an application. But that might be your preference. The fact that you're at GDevCon means you're probably using LabVIEW, and NI very much understand the value in third-party libraries, so they use quite a bit of it in some of their products. So if you're on Windows, I guess, and you go to your install directory, National Instruments, legal information, you'll see this folder full of subfolders, and they contain lots of different information about the third-party tools that LabVIEW is built or uses. And if you install the IDE, or if you install the runtime environment, or various runtime environments, you'll see that folder appear on disk. And what that is NI ensuring that they are meeting the terms of the licenses that they are distributing that software under. But sometimes, we want to make our users' life easier. We don't sort of give them the full LabVIEW install screen. We sort of maybe hide it away, or maybe we need to provide documentation to them that says, we're using these, but maybe you don't know that you also maybe need to direct them to this folder and say, oh, and by the way, we're using LabVIEW, which also uses these things. So even if you're not bringing in packages from VIPM or wherever, there's still, this stuff might still be worth taking a look at. And as a sort of example that's not related to LabVIEW and not related to anyone personally, and whatever they got from Pirate Bay. One of the important things to remember here is, let's say you want to train your LLM on, let's say some books. That would be really good, and you can have a fight in the courts and say, well, I'm training my model on these books, and that's all fair use. And the court goes, oh, okay, yeah, maybe, but it's still to be, I guess, decided, still under review. But someone might ask the expensive question of, and where did you get all these books from that are sort of on your servers, on your hard drives? And that's then when you have to say, fair point. So the point here is that even if you're sort of using something in the way that you would be allowed to, had you obtained it legitimately. If you didn't obtain it legitimately, then it can still be tricky for you. So hopefully that's a reasonable case study to demonstrate that. So thank you very much. Some of you were right on time. I was very, very impressed. I don't distribute any software. And I think, lots of open source licenses specifically sort of detail what happens when you use someone else's software and then you distribute it, right? You send it to out into the world as part of a product or whatever. But if you're just using stuff internally, then that's generally, I don't think, considered distribution. So that can include even working with people that you've subcontracted, or if you're subcontracting for someone, that's all internal use. It's not distribution. So that can get you out of lots of the requirements on lots of open source licenses. But not everything is sort of open source. Some stuff comes with a more custom or tailored licensing. So they might have terms around using something commercially. And if you're using something internally, but it is for business, like you're generating profit from it in some way, then it's considered commercial use. So a good example of that, in the LabVIEW community, is DQMH. So we've heard lots about DQMH. It's a very useful framework. I think it does great things, and I'm really grateful for the DQMH consortia and the work they do, working on this product. And they offer it to you for a very, very reasonable price of $0. And I think that works with Fabiola's joke of if you're not happy with DQMH, you can return it for a full refund. That's her joke. I'll not take credit for it. But one of the things when you want to use DQMH commercially is just take a look at the EULA, and it says that in your application you should include an about section, and they give you the useful text. So this is actually really, really nice for us as developers, in that they've given us a TLDR, right? We're not going to read the whole thing and understand what needs to be done. We're just given a nice shorthand, hey, just bear this in mind. If you're using this, think about how you're doing this. And they also provide, as part of the toolkit, like the text that you can use. So it's actually like really easy to comply with. I mean, I don't know what happens if you don't comply with this. I mean, for me, the word consortium sounds a bit scary. I assume they just like pick you up in the middle of the night in a van, maybe leave you in the wilderness. And I know that like Fabiola has that plane, like she'd just fly out over a big body of water, and I don't know, we'd never see you again. So, but you know, jokes aside, just take a look at the things that you've agreed to and consider them. So, yeah. Yes, nailed it. Thanks. Great work, guys. I like the pirate life. And to that I say, good for you. Like, you know, the iconography is cool. There's a guy there, like, I think he's holding like an hourglass with a skeleton. The skeleton's got a spear. Like, I'm not going to yuck your yum. If you're into it, fine. You do you. But what I want to avoid people doing is being like accidental pirates, because you've got all the legal peril, but like none of the fun stuff. So, you know, that's what I'm trying to help people avoid with this talk. And we're now going to take a look at some practical steps. I mean, mostly this has just been, I hope, amusing and sort of informative, but now we're going to look at what we can do to take some steps forwards. So, first thing, don't leave thinking about this to the end of a project. I know this is very much like eat your vegetables, but you really should eat your vegetables. Like, you want to grow up big and strong, and you don't want to have all this at the end of a project and then suddenly realize it's a much bigger deal than it could have been had you thought about it going through. So that's going to include, like, that's going to affect what you use when you're looking for third-party bits of software to bring into a project. You might look at the licensing terms and be like, oof, that's just going to be too restrictive for us. That's going to put too much burden on the whole software process, or what we give to our customers. So it absolutely factors into that. Don't like get your application sort of, oh, chef's kiss, perfect, and then be like, oh, what do you mean we can't send that out? So yeah, that's the start there. It's going to affect how you use those things. In certain cases, certain bits of third-party software can be integrated into your application in a number of ways. Some ways mean it's easier to distribute. Some ways give you more problems. So you might have to come up with a strategy. It's going to affect how you distribute it. There's some software that I'm aware of where they sort of say, like, you can install our product, but to get it to fully work, like, go here and also install these things. That then means that you're not responsible for distributing other people's stuff. Like, they do the distribution of their stuff, you do the distribution of your stuff, and together it all works. So, something else to consider. And finally, it's going to affect what you document. So, when you're different licenses have different requirements on how things should be documented, or what you hand to your users should have different information. Some stuff's like, yeah, we don't really care, just you don't have to mention us. Some licenses sort of say, oh, you just need to include the license file that comes with this library in the folder somewhere. Or I don't know, I think there was an era of electronic devices that used to run sort of Linux, where the manual would be this thick, but the first 3 pages is the getting started, and the rest of it is just reams and reams of open source license that have all sort of been put into the book. We don't generally have to do that nowadays, but you'll just probably distribute that information electronically. But yeah, it can be something that you bring into a document, and we're going to look at things that might help take some of the burden out of that. So, one thing that I've really found very useful when trying to understand this field is becoming familiar with the sort of common open source licenses. I'm going to throw a load of acronyms at you. BSD, MIT, GPL, Apache. So lots of licenses do similar things. Lots of them do them in a slightly different way. I guess it's a bit like LabVIEW and frameworks, right? You sort of look at a framework and go, it's close, but it's not quite as I want to do it, so maybe you do your own thing. And sort of reading the text of these, you can sort of see what the intention of the authors were, what they were trying to, some of it's about what their ethos was in developing this, how they wanted to be shared. And some of it is it's also a good way of getting into understanding some of the terms you see again and understanding those. So I wouldn't start just reading the license text. I mean, give it a first pass, but like, don't expect yourself to pass it the first time. I'm once again in the talk recommending this incredible book. So there's an author. Well, I think their day-to-day job is a lawyer. So this is Heather Meeker, but she had a background in software development, so she understands like both sides. And you can get a digital copy of her book simply by signing up to her mailing list. And when she says she doesn't spam, she doesn't spam. I think I honestly forget sometimes that I've even signed up because I may just see one email from her a year. So it's a really great book. It's full of like examples of when cases have been tried and just like a good explanation for developers of the different license types. So I recommend, it's free. Or you can get a pay for a paper, like a hardback, not paper, pay for a physical copy if you want on Amazon. So please, if you want to take away anything apart from the jokes about piracy, go and give that a read. So next thing, once my clicker wakes up. Oh no, oh, there we go. So if you want to go and find the texts for different licenses, then there's an organization called the Open Source Initiative. They have their site at opensource.org. And that's a great place where you can browse sort of by license name or maybe like by a couple of different characters and tags. And it'll show you the license text and some additional information. That's very handy. A website that I've discovered recently is libraries.io. So in this case, this website sort of scrapes lots of public repositories for packages, like across different languages, and it will sort of aggregate them, and it allows you to like search for packages by license type, or like, so let's say you're reviewing something, and you go, oh, I think I don't quite understand what license that package might be under. You can search for it under there, and you'll see, it'll like come up with lots of different results from different places. And it just makes it very easy to quickly search. I think these sort of platforms are intended to be tied into auditing for like software bill of materials, which I'm not really going to touch on. But like you're only someone accidentally like clicking on a phishing email from like the security alarms to start sounding in your organization, or suddenly lots of panicked emails are being sent. So I think if you already have like some information on what your software supply chain is and what you're using in your products, like it's good to have some initial early answers to cool some heads, and then you can work on processes. I think there's quite a bit of stuff coming into the LabVIEW ecosystem that is around like this software supply chain and software bill of materials. Like one fun thing I like doing, I sound like a massive nerd. I mean, I am, so that's fair. One of the things you can do on libraries.io is look at packages that have weird licenses. So for instance, there's this one that's actually on the page, which is the BSD3 clause, which is generally quite a nice license, but this one has like a no nuclear usage license. And you're like, oh, well, cool, I'm glad. And now I know there's something that looks nice, but then is tricky to look out for. So that's a good resource. I think there's a couple of other websites that do something similar. So the big one that I think is very easy to miss is dependencies of dependencies. We're talking about stuff like DLLs and .NET assemblies. So in the LabVIEW world, like we like stuff that's LabVIEW. We also like to leverage other tools. Like I really like bringing C++ stuff into LabVIEW because don't learn C++ unless you really have to or want to. LabVIEW's much nicer. But that then means that if I'm making it easy for a LabVIEW user to use, I might be sending you DLLs. And I think we're still sort of working out a good way of ensuring that information is communicated through sort of our common or through our current package management ecosystem. And then I guess the other one that's a bit more like LabVIEW-y for the non-text-based DLL nerds is PPLs and Python code. So now we're able to compile our libraries into packed project libraries. You then sort of lose lots of the context of what's inside those, like by design, but then also it makes it tricky for this thing. And I imagine people might be starting to create applications that pull in some Python code. So maybe they install some Python packages in the background, and then call those. And that would all be something that you have to think about in terms of dependencies. Unfortunately, in lots of these things, you're like, okay, so I look at the next level of dependencies and I see more dependencies, and you just have to keep going down the tree. Your application is like the roof of the house, and you have to sort of go all the way down to the foundation. But yeah, that's, it's one of the costs of bringing in this sort of stuff, bringing in third-party stuff into a library, but into a project. Sorry, but it's like it's still less work than trying to build that thing yourself. So it's still worth it. Another thing is make use of tools. I alluded to some. I'm going to spend a bit more time on two in particular. So one that's available through VIPM is the open source package license collector by Neosoft. So this is just a simple single VI that you can put in a build specification, like as a post-build step, or you can run it in your CI pipeline. And what it tries to do is, for the version of LabVIEW that you're using for your build or your CI, it will look at all the VIPM packages that are on disk and try and extract them and pull out their license file. And then it can shove them all in one directory, which is really great when you're just trying to aggregate the licenses in one place. I think there's issues where maybe the developer of the package, if they haven't put in a license file into the package and they've used some other way of specifying the license, then it can't pull it out to aggregate it. So, but yeah, it's a great starting point and very, very useful to see. Essentially what you've got installed and understanding all the licenses. Then when I was Googling this, I actually came across a YouTube video first, which was on the NI channel. If I get that to load. So on the NI Content Hub, there is a great video, sort of part of NI's focus on software bill of materials stuff. They had Sam Sharp from Agilent, who's maybe somewhere in the room. He was talking about an open source tool that he's been building, which is something to help with the much more involved software bill of materials process. And I think that can interact with packages you have installed with some manual intervention to actually select what's being used on the project. And also, I think it can plug into some stuff in NI package or so it's open source, which I love, of course. And yeah, I think I was chatting with Sam earlier, and he was saying that he's getting pretty close to something, but we can all help and keep that going. So yeah, we've got some tools already to get started with. That's great. And what I'd really love to say at the end of this talk is, don't let this stuff discourage you from open source and using third-party code. It's a great way of leveraging the experience of the community. The amount of effort that people have put into packages that they're releasing for free is incredible. I don't know how much it would cost to pay them to do it, but you could never afford it on a project. And open source and working as a community is absolutely the best way to build these tools that we all need and push them forward. So if we, as a group of developers, can say to NI hey, we're really missing this functionality in the NI package manager that gives us this information, or something in the build spec, I don't know. Or we can all go and harass Tom McQuillan from JKI on Discord and be like, Tom, can we add this to JKI to VIPM? And he's very polite when I message him and ask for features, and I'm generally trouble. So thank you, Tom, and thank you, JKI. So open source community involvement is the way to really progress these things along, and I'm so glad that we already have a good starting point in those two libraries from Neosoft and from Sam Sharp. So yeah, it's going to be the same joke again, right? I steal Jörg's slide and just crop it and do other stuff, and then put me on it. Is it going to go? There I am. Cool. Discussions, questions. Oh, thank you very much, everyone. Discussions, questions. Go for it. Anything? Oh, I think we've got one in the middle.
Thank you for the great content and entertainment. Not a question, but just a website that I really love for explaining licenses to developers in a very easy way, what you can do, what you cannot, what you must do. It's called tldrlegal.com.
Ah, great, yeah, thank you.
So check it out.
Yeah, I'll add it onto the slides at the end so everyone can find it. Thank you. Were there any more? Oh, I think we have one back up, right?
If you use a third-party library, for example, with the BSD license, and it's also using other libraries, are they always BSD or open licenses, or how is this?
Yeah, so yeah, I think if I understand your question, you're sort of asking, you know, if you use a third-party license and it's using other third-party licenses, like
Yes.
what's the process? That it can get a bit complicated, but to give I'll try and do a simple answer. There's a range of sort of open source licenses that play quite nicely together. So you might see like a BSD third-party tool that also uses an MIT third-party tool, and they kind of, you know, like that's sort of fine. But just because the top level is BSD doesn't mean that someone won't be using something else underneath. So that's when I say when you have to like go down through that layer of dependencies and discover each layer. Some licenses you know, are actually incompatible, so you might try and integrate them, and in theory you can't. So you know that's something to watch out for. But yeah, thank you for the question. Hopefully that.
Thank you.
Cheers. Oh, one down here. Oh, sorry, one moment. I'll just grab the microphone. Cheers.
Such a question. There are a lot of, as you described, there are a lot of dependencies. Does anybody try to do some automatization of this process? Coupling them together in some logical structure?
Yes. So I think that the tools that I've done can sort of can do some automation. Unfortunately, I mean, this is a sort of thing that covers all of the software engineering, so we can take advantage of stuff they're doing. There's some tools that can sort of like just scan maybe projects on disk or files on disk and try and like spot, like, oh, I know the text that's probably this license, and it'll pull it in. But they're all like automation, so they sometimes fall down, and you can't really trust them to have got 100% coverage on everything. Yeah, I think as a community we should focus on building them for LabVIEW and try and get the best thing, and also maybe coming up with strategies for, like, when we're sharing code, can we do some of the legwork of building like the dependencies below us, so it's much easier for someone consuming our package to see, okay, I can see their tree of dependencies.
Cannot trust 100%. It's better that if we cannot trust 100%, it is better that you cannot trust me because it's 20%.
Yeah, indeed. So, you know, that, like, yeah. Thank you.
Now I have a real question or clarification. So you can, in theory, use a dependency that allows you for commercial distribution, for example, and that dependency will use another dependency that doesn't allow commercial distribution. So that's why you need to check down the tree all the way.
Yes, yeah. So for instance, I have a package that uses a C++, lots of C++ code. The binary itself is LGPL, which means that if you were to modify it, you would have to share the source. But because I call it through a DLL, like a call library function node, I can write a 0BSD LabVIEW wrapper. So like anyone can use my wrapper for that library without worrying about it, but they need to remember that my library is using something that is a bit more restrictive, and they just have to take care.
I mean, probably more complex than that, but it sounds to me that the top level creator of the library, knowing that something is not allowed for commercial distribution, then should not allow his tool for commercial distribution, right?
Yeah. I try and reflect in my licensing, like the most restrictive license is the license I apply to my package.
But that's not an obligation.
But no, I mean that's just something I try and do to help. But other people just do what they want. I've seen some, like I think the Python FFT library is like that's MIT. But it's calling like a, GPL FFT library. So unless you take that dive, yeah, it can catch you out. So yeah. I think we're out of time, so I should probably get off the stage. People are very welcome to come and approach me and ask questions, or message a message on Discord, and I'll respond.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Super.